Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. So today I'm here with another knitting podcast. This is episode number 4 and my name is Famke. This is I call it a knitting podcast, but I also show some crochet on here and maybe in the future some sewing. I don't really sew for myself anymore because I have a business that takes up a lot of sewing, which is why it's called Mipi Makes and not Mipi Knits. In this podcast I have 2 finished objects. And then I also have the most amazing yarn acquisition haul bit at the end of the video. I'm gonna start with the one that I don't have on hand and I'm not gonna talk too much about it. It's the Malwina Sweater from Vert and Rose. I made it in about 3 weeks time and I made it in the Drops Nepal yarn held together with a drop skid silk. I really loved the pattern, how it was knitting up. It was just amazing to me. The reason why I sold it was because I added the mohair, and for some reason this color really sheds a lot and it was just driving me insane. I don't think I would really wear a sweater that sheds at home, and I work from home, so it really didn't make sense for me to hold on to it. So I've sold it, obviously not for a nice price. I just got the amount of yarn out of it, but I guess I can use that money for some new yarn, which I actually did. So in the end it all turned out fine, I would say. Then the next finished object is the one right here, and this I kind of cast on a whim. The Sorbet Sweater from Kutovakika, or Kika I think is just her name, and it looks like this. I'm not wearing any whips, as you can tell. I'm wearing a new blouse from my store just because I felt like it, but I will actually try this on and insert a little clip of me. It's a little bit of a cropped sweater. I love that it has a lace chart in the front, but then also in the back. Usually with store-bought sweaters they have beautiful lace and cables on the front, and then the back or the sleeves is just all plain. Then, as you can tell from the neckline, it does have short rows in the back. Honestly, when I wear it I feel like I could have had more short rows in the back. Could have just been my body proportions. Then I made the alteration of adding in some elastic in the neckline on the top, which is why it has that very rounded shape. Because if you look at the pictures on her Ravelry page or her website, whatever, you can see that the neckline is actually quite big. In the pattern she picks up less stitches here in the underarm, and then there are decreases done throughout the sleeves. What I did was I picked up more stitches in the underarm to avoid holes, so this is probably my least holy sweater that I have. Then I didn't do any decreases, and then on the last row I just knit together all of the stitches and then did a ribbing, just like in a pattern. And then I always do a regular cast off, so I don't do a tubular cast off or an Italian bind off or whatever people are using nowadays. I just do a cast off in patterns, just because who wants to spend so much time on just binding off, and I feel like nobody even sees the bind off, only yourself. So I just feel like I would rather spend my time knitting or not knitting. Just watching TV is honestly better than doing an Italian bind off. More about this sweater, I'm going off track. It's made in Inca from Linda Garn, held together with Dreamline Air from Store Alpaca. And I really just love how these colors went together. I will show you a close up. Because the Linda Garn from Inca, it's kind of that reddish color, and then it kind of created a marble effect because the Dreamline Air was brown. Now I've worn this sweater quite a few times and it is sadly peeling a bit, which I kind of expected with this yarn. So that's the Sorbet Sweater. Then the next finished object that I have is a little scarf. This is the scarf number 2 by My Favorite Things Knitwear. This is a lace scarf with all of these increases, so you actually cast on these stitches first, like 5 or something, and then keep doing make one left and make one right until eventually you get this really big triangle. It's worked in charts, so chart A, B, C, and then underneath in the original pattern it should have a chart D, but for me I felt like this was already a nice size, so actually I wear it like this backwards, and then I can just tie it like this. And I feel like this is already a good size for me. I personally didn't want it to be any bigger, so I skipped the last chart. Then the yarn that I used was a hand-dyed yarn from Life in a Long Grass, and it's in the color Noon. DK Twist, 230 meters, and it's 100% fine superwash merino, which is super interesting to me because this yarn doesn't feel like wool at all. I for a second really thought that it had some nylon in it or that it just wasn't wool. I even had my boyfriend touch it, who's like really allergic to wool, and he didn't seem very bothered. So I think for someone that's like super sensitive, like when he wears a jacket with 2% wool, he's already itching. That's how sensitive he is to wool. So he's not knit worthy, as people say. But this yarn is just really soft, so I would really recommend it. And I actually didn't use the entire skein to make this scarf. So it's good to know if you are planning yourself to knit one of these, that you can easily get it out of less than one skein. Because we all know hand-dyed yarn can get pretty expensive. So it's always nice to have things that take up a skein or less. Then for the bind off, in the pattern they just say bind off all stitches. But I did an I-cord bind off, which I think really complements this pattern very well. And it just looks super. So that's my scarf number 2. Really love this pattern. Then for my next finished object, this counts as like half of a finished object, because I've started knitting socks. And so this is actually my first ever knitted sock. As you can see, it looks very small because it is a little bit too small, but also because it is not blocked yet, and since it's my first sock, a lot of mistakes were made. So like here it's looking a little bit holy because I dropped some stitches. Then here the decreases, I feel usually with these decreases for the toe you have a bigger line here, but mine is really small because I did the decreases wrong. Overall it's just a little bit rough, but I'm also happy overall because it's my first sock and it's just really cool. This is the Kissing Kate sock from Drops, so it's a free pattern and I made it in this yarn. It's the Durable Socks yarn, which is just a regular sock yarn, so 75% wool and 25% polyamide, 50 grams for 210 meters. Since then I have started knitting the second pair, but I've not really worked on it for a while now, so I have to get back into it. But when you have lots of other projects in the works, sometimes other projects get a little bit on hold. So yeah, that's my sock. I especially really love just this lace pattern and then this little ruff on the top. This is knit on 3mm needles, but one thing is that I'm definitely still figuring out the sizing. I believe I made the size medium, which is a size 38-39, and I am a 39. But I do find this part very big, so this circumference for your foot. Now I also happen to have very big ankles and legs, so it fits fine, but I would say for most people it actually would be too big. So like always, it could also be my mistake, or that I'm a loose knitter, or that I didn't gauge swatch. So those were all of the finished objects, and I guess also a little bit of a whip. And now we can get started into all of the actual whips that I have. And since we're on the sock train, I will show you my second pair that I'm working on. And I'm working on 2 socks at the same time because these are called my anxiety socks. So I only knit on them when I have anxiety because they are vanilla socks. So it's just plain stockinette, I don't have to think about it. and it's in this yarn that I have left over from the Augustins #1 that I did. And this is what I have so far. And this is from the Crazy Sock Lady, and these are the 2.25mm socks. And I don't really have anything else to say about that, only that for the heels and the toe I'm going to use a contrasting color, which is going to be this one from Gazelle. Those are my anxiety socks, and I keep them in a little bag so that if I know I'm going somewhere that gives me a bit of anxiety, I will bring them. But now I'm actually in my therapy. We're doing like things that scare me, but without things that comfort me, like the sock, so I haven't knit on it a ton. The next whip that I have is a super fun one. It's something that I didn't expect to knit, and it's also something that I looked at the pattern and I was like, I think I can make that. But then I downloaded the pattern and I was just like, oh my god, what am I getting myself into? This is too difficult for me. So the pattern that I'm talking about is cardigan number 6, also from my Favorite Things Knitwear. I do believe this pattern designer is a little bit controversial because it's not very size inclusive. This is my little cardigan that I have so far. I need to start picking up the stitches for the sleeves and then get on the sleeve island. But I just haven't felt the motivation to start picking them up, because it's one of those points in the pattern where you have to look at the pattern and see, oh, how many stitches, how am I gonna do that? And it's different when you're just somewhere in the middle and just going on with the chart, you know, mindless. And now I'm at a point where it's not mindless. I do really like how it's looking. I do think this is gonna need some definite hard blocking, especially this button band or this ribbing. I'm knitting this in this yarn. This is Long Yarns Regina. Why I decided to get it is actually the composition of this yarn. It's really interesting because it's 50% cotton, 24% alpaca, 20% silk, and then 6% wool. I just think that's such an interesting yarn composition, and I've never come across that before. And it also feels just very summery to me. It's very light and soft. And I got 10 balls of it. And I believe the sweater takes up like 5 of them. And then I'm gonna knit a matching midi skirt from Drops, because this yarn is similar to their baby merino, so I'm gonna use a pattern that calls for the baby merino and then use this yarn instead. And then I will have a cardigan with a skirt, like a matching set, and I think that will be really nice. I'm holding 2 strands of mohair. This was from the Breigarens EU website that I've talked about before. It's where I got these really big cones. The original pattern is done with 3 strands of mohair, but for me that would just be too much of a mohairy project. I feel like with the Long Yarns Regina in between, it just gives it a little bit more weight, makes it less opaque, and I just kind of prefer the fabric that it creates. The next whip that I have, I started actually a few days ago, and it was very impulsively because I saw a crochet hat from And Other Stories and I just really loved it. And just like any knitter or crocheter, you will know this feeling that you will see something and you think, hey, I can make that for less money, even though it's really not less money and you spend hours recreating the thing. But I decided to do it anyways. So I went to my local yarn shop and I got these balls. These are all cotton. So these two are Katja Yarns Alabama, and it's 50% cotton and 50% acrylic. And it really has that acrylic feeling. When I got it in the store, I thought it was nice, but then I started crocheting with it and I just don't really like the way that it feels on my hands, on my needle. And also, when I was weaving in the ends, you could hear it squeaking and it was just the most awful noise to me. But then the main or the contrasting color is this one. And this one is actually different, because this is, what is it called? Concept by Crochet, and it's Cotton in Love. And this one is actually 50% cotton and 50% virgin wool. And for some reason I really love this yarn. It's just a really nice yarn. I think I prefer this to a 100% cotton yarn. This is just nicer to me. It is quite expensive compared to cotton yarn from Drops, for example. This was €6 per ball. And then this is what I have so far. So I did a daisy crochet pattern and then just did some pink crochet around it. I did 5 for the crown. I'm gonna show you how it looks just over my headband. And I have some ends to weave in. Yeah. As you can see, it is tight, which is how I wanted it to be. Because a lot of hats on me personally are too big, because I have a small circumference head. I believe my head is like 52 or 51 centimeters, which sometimes in patterns is actually a child or junior size. Now, the question is, am I gonna make a YouTube video showing how I made this once it's finished? Or am I going to release a pattern and then make a complementary video? And then I think if I made a pattern for it, I would probably do like 3 different sizes. So for example 52, 54 and 56 centimeters. And then that also means that I would have to make multiple of these hats. Also sizes that don't fit me personally, and buy yarn for it. So if I were to introduce multiple sizes, I do want to be able to earn a little bit of money off it, just because it's a big expense for me, time-wise and money-wise. So let me know what you would like. I'm just excited to have this little hat done, and I absolutely love these little colors. And I think it will be a perfect hat to wear on my roof terrace. Just when I'm reading a book or knitting, I can wear the little hat to keep the sun out of my eyes. So those are the whips that I have. I actually have one more whip. I kept it in this little box. If you want to know where it's from Sostrene. They actually usually have a lot of these like cardboard boxes. And I found this around my house and it was empty, and I was like, why is this not a whip basket? So I turned it into it. Oh, how funny. The colors match so well. This is an Augustins number 7 in the making. I'm knitting this in Drops Flora and Drops Kid Silk yarn that I have over here actually. And this yarn combination is actually super duper soft, so I'm really happy with it. And it's also very affordable, so this one is nice. The mohair, let me see. Yeah, I mean it does shed, so we have to see how much I like it when it's finished. But overall the fabric is feeling softer and nicer than the Vert and Rose sweater was feeling, the Malwina sweater. And this is an Augustins sweater, and I just really love her patterns. So this is the little yoke. Is it not falling? Oh. It's knit on 6mm needles. So yeah, I haven't worked on this one also in a few days, but I do really like it. And I hope to start working on it again. And now, after I've talked about all of my whips, we can get into the yarn acquisitions. I have some boring acquisitions that I won't even show you, but I got some more sock needles and also some double pointed needles, all for sock knitting. And it's just really boring, so I'm not gonna show you. But that is something that I got this month. But then the more fun acquisition is this basket full of hand-dyed yarn. Oh my goodness. Now, this was something very unplanned. Basically, with my therapy, I have to do things, like I mentioned before, that scare me. And without any distractions, just full-on fear mode. It's exposure therapy, basically. And after you've done it, you can trick yourself. So you can trick yourself in all kinds of ways, whatever you like. Sometimes I get something nice to eat, or I get some fast food, or just some like time for myself that I can enjoy, or I buy something that I've been wanting for a while. Something else that I like to do is go somewhere, which scares me, and then to buy something there. So then I have like a reason to go. So that's what I did. So I went to a yarn shop with the tram and I bought this yarn. So I got 2 of these hand-dyed skeins from Verve, which is now basically my favorite hand-dyed yarn company, because I love all of her colorways. It's very affordable, it's hand-dyed in the Netherlands, it's a small business, just so many things that I like about it. It's 80% superwash merino wool and 20% nylon, and this is their merino twist sock. So it's 100 grams and 365 meters. And I just absolutely love this. This I'm gonna use for a Filcolana free pattern. It's called the Diva. And it's just a really nice simple pattern with shorter sleeves that flare out a little bit. I don't really know the original yarns that they used. I believe they used 2 fingering weights yarn and then 1 silk mohair. So I'm gonna use 1 thread of this. Then I'm gonna use this one as my silk mohair. So this is the Gazelle Super Kit mohair. After purchasing that one in store, I saw on Instagram that she was doing a sale. Not like a huge sale or something, she was just giving 10% off. I decided to treat myself and get some things because she doesn't really do sales and I wanted to support her business because I really like her. So that's how all of the other things ended up here. First off, we have these 2 skeins of basic sock yarn. So the basic sock yarn is always 75% superwash virgin wool and 25 biodegradable nylon. So that's really interesting actually. And it's 100 grams and 420 meters. And me being a size extra small, 2 skeins is actually enough for me to make a sweater. I don't know what it's gonna be yet, but it's gonna be something good. Then we have this one. I hope these colors show up well, because on the product pictures on our website they look a lot more beige and grey, and in real life they are a lot more peachy toned, which I'm actually happy about. It was a very pleasant surprise when I opened these up. And they have like some speckles of yellow and black, and it's just a little bit more neutral, but while still being not a neutral, which I love this one. I already know what this one is gonna be, and it's gonna be a cardigan. I will insert a little picture of it. I believe it's called the Amy cardigan by Mauricette, a French designer. And it really gives me Cézanne vibes, and I think in this yarn it's gonna be great. And then the final yarn that I got is my favorite, so I saved the best for last. And it's this one. And I feel like this is kind of my preferred color, because it's pink, purple, white and like yellow. Just absolutely beautiful. This is also very close to being my favorite. I'm honestly not sure. I love all of them. But it's gonna be like an open neck sweater from Tricot Design MCL, I believe is her name. And it's another French designer. So I'm gonna use this yarn and it's just beautiful. So that was everything that I had to show for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I think maybe in the future I'm gonna do a knitting episode every 2 weeks, because I do feel like they're a little bit long and my projects kind of just randomly appear. You don't really see the process of them. So let me know if that's something that you would prefer, and then the videos would also be a little bit shorter, so easier to watch. So I hope you all have a very nice day. Enjoy the weather that's finally becoming sunny with some knitting. And I will see you all the next time. Bye!